Hey, you're listening to the wrong podcast. Topics today include revenge, resurgence, and regrets.
Wrong!
It's the wrong podcast, but we'll make it right. Spinning the world in a whole new light. Witty, wild, and a little askew. And the one who's right, it might be you.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm here to talk about politics, culture, religion, sports, and anything else you're not allowed to talk about in polite company. Issue number 1! Beeswax! I come across these stories for a little bit on my Facebook feed. I was getting all these, am I the jerk kind of stories where somebody tells a story, and a lot of times they've got to be fake. Right, they got to be fake. Oh, am I the jerk? I donated $500 to this children's hospital, and my brother wanted to go out to dinner instead. Am I the jerk? No, that's not the kind of story I'm sharing here today. The first story is this guy. He moved into a new neighborhood in Florida, and he noted his backyard property didn't have a fence, and it backed up to a state park. And he noticed, he knew first, let me tell you, he knew that his property line wasn't that deep. And he noticed that his neighbor had stuck stuff out past the property line and continued to build. And he had built like a patio and a driveway. He had stored a car and a golf cart back there and set up tables. And this guy, he says to his neighbor, as he's continuing to add on past what he's already added, he says, hey, I used to work for the Park Service, and you should be aware that every once in a while they'll survey the land to make sure that the property line's where it's supposed to be. And the neighbor says, well, I've been living here for years, and you should just mind your own business. So, new guy says, my mistake. Goes about minding his own business. Well, his neighbor happened to be a snowbird. And sure enough, the new neighbor was out, he was, sitting outside once, and he noticed the Park Service come by, and they're checking, they're looking at their maps, they're looking at this property. Things aren't right. They come back with a letter saying all this stuff is going to be torn out. You've got 30 days notice. And he sees the note. His neighbor is snowbirding back up into the northern parts of the country, and he minds his own business. And sure enough, they tear out everything that this guy had added. He had poured concrete that was all the way up to the house. They ripped it all up. They impounded the vehicle that was back there. They took everything away, and there was a notice that everything had been taken away. And if it wasn't seized, if it wasn't claimed soon, it would be, county property. And the guy continued to mind his own business. Well, sure enough, eventually the snowbirding neighbor, he came home, and he's in his house. The new guy's in his house, and he hears the snowbirding neighbor come in, and he starts swearing and cursing, and he's really excited. Obviously his backyard has been torn up. His car is gone. There's notice. He's frantically trying to call to make sure he can get his vehicle back. Excuse me. And they eventually see one another. And the snowbirding neighbor says, "Oh my goodness! Can you believe what they did? They took my car. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me when they were doing this and let me know? I would have come back down to Florida right away and gotten my stuff." And the new neighbor says, "You asked me to mind my own business." Second story along the same line. There's this trick that lovely Wendy and I do when we're flying on an airplane. That's where you fly on airplanes. And what we do, if it's just the two of us, is we will book the aisle seat and the window seat, and we will leave the middle seat open. And I'm giving away a big secret here. Nobody knows about this trick, except for the people in this story. So this guy, he gets on a plane, and he's got the middle seat. And he says, there's somebody in the aisle seat and somebody in the window seat, and they're married. And what you do in this situation, if you're setting this up for yourself, is when somebody comes and you discover that they've got the middle seat, one of you, whether it's the aisle or window person, says, would you like my seat instead? We can sit together. We're married. And this is just a way of, during the booking process, to scare people off of the middle seat in case it's not a fully booked flight. You're welcome. The trick's not going to work anymore because this podcast is so wildly successful, everybody will know about it. So, the guy, he sees this married couple. Neither of them want to move to be next to the other. He sits in the middle seat, and he discovers they're married because they start having conversations with one another over him. And this is not a happily married couple. They have quite a bit of contempt for one another. It's quite apparent that one, if not both, have cheated on the other. One of them says, marriage counseling was such a waste of time. I can't believe we wasted the money on that. And they're making snide remarks to one another back and forth. And the guy says, I see that you're married. No, he doesn't even say that. He says, excuse me, you're being quite loud, because the way they're going after one another is just so belligerent. It's not even a conversation. They're really going after one another. He says, excuse me, you're disturbing me. And they say, it's not interfering with your physical space. So he rolls his eyes. They go on. A meal comes. It must be an international flight, because that's the only place you're getting a meal these days. And they're complaining about what each other got, and oh look, you got another oily car, big shocker, and the husband's watching a movie he says, hopefully this will be you someday, Gone in 60 Seconds, or Gone Girl, something like that. You get the idea. And so the guy in the middle, he decides this is how he's going to settle it. When they start talking over him, they start going after each other. He starts saying things like, nice weather we got going up here, right? Clear skies as far as the eye can see. And then later on, he goes, I like peas and carrots. How about you? Do you like peas and carrots? And he's not talking to either of them. He's just talking loudly over them. And of course, one of them says, excuse me, could you stop doing that? That's really obnoxious. And he says, it's not interfering with your physical space. At which point the husband says, would you like to switch seats with me? And he gladly does. And then the married couple glare at him the rest of the flight. It seems all they needed to fix their marriage was a common enemy. Hey, Kristen, listener Kristen, just so you know, it's coming. It's almost here. Get ready. Issue number 2! Tanking. I told you so. You are not allowed to say the words, I told you so. I desperately want to say I told you so to all kinds of people. All the time. I really, really live my life hoping I can say I told you so to people. The problem is you can't say I told you so. It doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help your relationship. Nobody responds kindly to those words. They don't say, oh, you were right. I should have listened to you. Now that you mentioned that you told me so. But let me tell you, in this situation, I told you so. I told you so hard that I wish I had a theme song for I Told You So. Somebody make me a theme song for I Told You So, because I will use that thing. I will told you so much with such a great musical anthem. That would be awesome. In this case, it's about sports gambling. I've mentioned in the past that all the leagues are getting into sports gambling. They're all partnering with sports betting, online sports betting venues and websites. And it's not just that you can bet on the game, but you can do all these micro bets. So they'll say, hey, the Packers have a 25% chance of getting a first down here. Go to this website and bet on it. Things like that. During the game, you will get ads for bets on minor things. And if you have an app for one of these things, it'll give you notifications while you're watching the game. Do you want to bet on this? Do you want to bet on this? Do you want to bet on this? And 2 sports leagues have been hit with major scandals in the last 2 weeks. First is the NBA. They had a coach and an all-star player, among all kinds of other people, get arrested or indicted or investigated for sports gambling. And in one case, somebody just had insider information about LeBron James and whether or not he was going to be injured. And he passed that information on to the mafia. I don't know who else. He passed it on to somebody, and that allowed them to put in bets before everybody else did about whether or not LeBron James was going to be playing and whether or not, how that would impact the Lakers. It's like insider trading, but it's gambling. And all kinds of clips came out about this one player with him very obviously throwing the ball away to the opposing team. Also, the Major League Baseball, that's right, I just said the Major League Baseball. They had 2 pitchers. They are now under arrest. They're about to go on trial. We've got all the details. They were tipping off their friends about what kind of pitch they would throw. So you could do a bet on whether or not the pitcher would throw a strike as the first pitch, or if he would throw a ball. And his friend said, hey, why don't you just go ahead and throw a ball on the first pitch on this game, and we'll bet heavy on it, and then we'll give you some money for it. And he goes, great, how much money? We'll give you about $7,000. And these people bet, and they were the only ones betting this way. They were not smart gamblers, betting a huge amount of money. $7,000, I think, was what they were betting. And they would bet that he would throw a ball. And sure enough, the guy would spike it into the ground, and they would win all kinds of money. And then they would Venmo the guy his cut of the deal. And this worked out pretty well for them, except for one situation. He threw a terrible pitch, and this guy, Andy Pajas of the Dodgers, actually swung at it. And he wasn't supposed to swing. It was such a bad pitch. But he did. And these guys never bet the wrong way. They never tried to hide it. They always bet the same amount. All of their conversations were very transparent about what they were doing. And they got caught. And here's the deal. One of these pitchers, I said picture, that's weird. One of these pitchers, he is borderline Hall of Fame. He is an all-star. He's an excellent player. He makes $10 million a year. They were paying him $7,000 to throw a pitch into the ground. And here's the deal. He was making, from his major league salary, about $7,000 a pitch. He didn't need this money. He didn't need it at all. He threw a $10 million a year career to make $7,000. And I heard a sports commentator saying this is truly the banality of evil. Now, I was an art major, and let me tell you about the word banality. It comes from the word banal or banal. And our banal, I think, is the correct way to say it. But we say banality. But one of our art teachers, he said, don't say banal, say banal. It'll make it sound so much more fancy. When something is banal, it's boring. It's plain. It's not worth your time. And sports gambling has taken on the banality of evil. It's the kind of evil that's just boring. It doesn't make any sense why you're being evil, why you're cheating, why you're stealing from people. It's just boring. It's not worth anybody's time to look at or care about. And you do not want evil to become that kind of thing, where people are just bored by it because the stakes are so low. And that's exactly what's going on in this baseball scandal. Somebody is he's intentionally messing up so people can make money on it on the side. And it's not helping him at all. He's not even really benefiting from it. He's just doing something because it's evil, and he's evil. And Major League Baseball and the NBA and NFL and hockey, they probably need to start reconsidering their involvement in sports gambling and how hard they're pushing it. Because these incidents I've mentioned are by far not the only incidents going on. They're just the incidents that have been caught. There's people who are much smarter than this, who can get their friend to throw a strike or a ball, and they're hiding it better. They're not betting the same amount over and over again. They're losing occasionally. There are ways to hide this sort of thing, and smart people are probably taking advantage of it. And gambling is the one thing sports can't mess with. It's the thing that can ruin the entire industry, can ruin the entire sport. Nobody's interested if everybody thinks it's cooked. In the NFL right now, everybody thinks the Kansas City Chiefs have an advantage with the referees. There's serious speculation going on that the referees are intentionally helping the Kansas City Chiefs because it's good for the sport in general. If the Chiefs are good. You got Taylor Swift there, you got Travis Kelce, you've got this dynasty, and the truth is it's not good for the sport if it's actually happening, because people will stop watching. And that is even more true if things are happening so that people can make money on the side off of other people who are watching. Hey, it's time. What are the rules?
Oh, what are the rules? What are the rules? Don't touch my fries or my garden tools. Oh, what are the rules? Yeah, I got my quirks. Follow them closely and I promise it works.
My family, we were just staying in a hotel, and the lovely Wendy, she took the first shower, and she came out and said, hey, just so you know, the faucet in the shower is backwards. If you turn it on, it's hot. If you turn it all the way over, it's cold. The hottest setting is immediately on. The coldest setting is all the way over. This is backwards. Do you know how long I could have been standing there waiting for the water to heat up? Waiting because I turned it all the way over. And what boggles my mind is that this was a hotel. And this is the kind of thing that you encounter at hotels frequently. It's not all the time, but it's certainly not never. Probably 1 out of 10 visits to a hotel for you is there's something weird with the shower faucet. Am I right? I know I'm right. I don't need to ask you that. Don't answer. I already know the answer to the question. I am right. At least 10% of the time, the faucet is funky and is probably backwards. And what boggles my mind about this is hotels know which direction it should go. These hotels are made by professional builders. There's no mystery about this. They've got a professional plumber doing this. When something breaks, they've got a professional plumber fixing it. How is it so frequently that the faucet is backwards? And this was a Hilton. This isn't some mom and pop shop you never heard of. This isn't some old abandoned hotel that's been taken over by somebody with no name and you got a cheap deal on Hotwire. No, this was a Hilton. Come on, Paris. Get your tish together. Very clear. Cold water first. Hot water last. That's the rule. Remember, I'm going to know what's wrong with you.
What's wrong with you?
If you'd like to submit a question, topic, or tell me how I was wrong, you can email me at listen@therewrongpodcast.com or submit a comment at my website, therewrongpodcast.com. And help me spread the wrong message. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. And leave a review. If you've got the option to leave a review on iTunes or some other podcasting platform, that really does help. It helps people find the show. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show. I was wrong.
I was wrong. Oh, I was wrong.
Listener Amy, I just saw Amy in person and she said, I listen, I lurk, but I will never comment. Bad news for you, Amy. You're commenting right now. I asked Amy if there was a particular portion of the podcast that she enjoyed, and she said, I totally agreed with you on the need to pull all the way forward at the gas station. Just plain ridiculous when people don't. I don't know that she actually said just plain ridiculous. That might have been me responding to Amy, but you get the idea. Pull all the way forward. I read a comment from listener John, and I followed up with him, and I said, you started the conversation by saying that I was cherry picking, concerning gerrymandering and Prop 50. And if you don't recall, I came out opposed to gerrymandering. And John was in favor of gerrymandering in this particular situation in California. So I asked him, hey, which of the relevant factors do you think I left out if you think I was cherry picking? And this is what John had to say.
So, a precursory examination of the situation in which Prop 50 was proposed includes, within the context of a social media conversation, some quite reasonable inclusions of several relevant factors. 1, a convicted felon being elected as president. 2, that same president depicting himself as king. 3, that same president aspiring to be a dictator on day 1. 4, the same president asserting the authority to dictate how voting works in the states. 5, the same president orchestrating the implementation of an illegal paramilitary force that is kidnapping people off the streets of the country just for disagreeing with him or for supporting the Palestinian people. 6, the same president supporting the FCC pressure to remove Jimmy Kimmel from the air because of political dissent. 7, a judicial branch that, despite Trump's losses in lower courts at a rate of 94%, has a Supreme Court that, via the shadow docket, gives him wins at a rate of 94%. 8, a Supreme Court that has undermined the very Constitution by adjudicating that the president cannot be held accountable for breaking the laws when acting as an executor. 9, a majority in both congressional divisions who don't assert and undermine their own authority as a check against the executive power. 10, the temporary nature of the displacement of the California Commission. 11, the acknowledgement that the prospect of gerrymandering is displeasurable. And 12, the expressed desire for free and fair elections coming from the same advocates for Prop 50, while pointing out that the Republicans don't advocate the same position. Again, see the Democratic initiative to make gerrymandering illegal nationwide. These are all relevant to the question of gerrymandering in this situation, and I could name more. It's the picture that all of these paint together that should influence our thinking on this question, not just one factor. None of these were given substantive consideration in your analysis. Rather, the situation was boiled down to one simple claim. Just because Texas does it doesn't mean we should. If that were the only relevant factor, and I didn't mention that this move was directed by the president, I would agree with you, but you cherry-picked the hell out of that.
Thank you, John, for the explanation. There's a number of things there that I agree with John are troubling. I don't necessarily agree to how he framed all of them, but there's enough there to say yes, there is a problem here. There is cause for concern. I agree with him that there is cause for concern, and in this situation, I would say that we still need the system. And if you dismantle the system, you are actually opening the door to a dictator. Whether or not Trump is a dictator or not, that's a conversation that we all have our opinions on, I'm sure. The worst thing you can do for a dictator is try to tear down the system, tear down democracy, because who's going to win in that situation? It's going to be the dictator. It's not going to be the people on the other side of the dictator who don't have the power. Issue number 3, breakup. Hey, there's a guy I need to tell you about. His name is Nick Fuentes. You may be aware of him, you may not be, but he is a person of interest. He has 10 to 15,000 listeners to every episode of his podcast or his video stream, and some of his episodes have garnered the attention of at least 100,000 to 1 million people. I don't know, the numbers are weird, but let's just go with the 100,000 mark. 100,000 people are listening to this guy. And what you need to know about Nick Fuentes is he loves Hitler. And I'm not saying that in the, oh, you're a Nazi sort of way. No, he flat out likes Hitler. He hates Jews. He is in favor of authoritarianism. And he claims this all in the name of Jesus. Let me just play you a few clips of who Nick Fuentes is. And if you want a deeper discussion of his problematic views, I'm going to direct you to Ben Shapiro, who is a conservative Jewish commentator, and he decided to let people know exactly who Nick Fuentes is. I'm going to give you a small taste of Nick Fuentes. Here you go.
I saw something on Twitter. I don't even know if this is true, but something on Twitter said, like, all of Hitler's girlfriends were 16 and 17. And Alex Jones, I don't even know if that's true, but if that is, that's probably why Alex Jones called Hitler a pedophile. And it's like, you should be saying the same thing about Hitler. MLK was a rapist, and Hitler was a pedophile. It's like, you know what? The world's a little bit more complicated than that. Okay? The world's a little bit more complicated than you're making it out to be. Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really
radio edit.
So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really
radio edit.
Cool. And any boy knows that. Anybody who watches these videos where he's rolling down the street and stuff, it's like, this guy's awesome. This guy's cool. Second semester, you know, I got home in the spring and I was like, Mom, Dad, Hitler was awesome. Hitler was right. And the Holocaust didn't happen. And my parents were like, we cannot believe what you are saying. We did not raise you like this. I'm like, I can't believe you're not being chill about this. White people are being browbeaten into submission with the Hitler myth. That's what it's about. That's what it's always been about. This powerful Hollywood idea is being used to bludgeon white people, to give up their nations, give up their identity, give up Western civilization, European, white civilization, our heritage, our genetics, and to insulate Jews from any kind of criticism. These organized, international, powerful Jews that are manipulating our country for their own benefit. That is the Hitler myth. That is why we talk about it in the way that we do. Dude, Hitler had aura. You know what I have to say about that? Hitler had aura. Aura. Hitler had aura. He was riding down the street like this. And everybody's like, and then he was up there in the giant speech with the banners. He had aura, that's why. Shut up, dude. This is just your ethnic grievance. This whole Hitler wanted to destroy Christianity. There's some truth behind that. I'm not a Hitler worshiper. I just don't think he was the devil. And look, if you're such an idiot that you can't see what I'm saying about Hitler, about Stalin, about Napoleon, about Caesar, then you're just not white. Okay? Then you just don't get it. Polish people have this bad habit of like hating Hitler, and We're going to stop dissing the Nazis all the time, okay? I like empires.
Radio edit.
With Rome.
Radio edit.
With Nazi Germany.
Radio edit.
With Napoleon and Charlemagne and all of it. I'm not one of these nationalists for all nations, but they partitioned Poland. Yeah, and what about it, okay? I mean, really?
Now, I don't know if you remember many episodes ago, I talked about another conservative commentator named Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh has recently talked about this idea of no enemies to the right. And this notion, originally, it was originally attributed to Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan was starting to run and run for president, I guess for his fourth time, not starting, but when he was the nominee, he said, hey, we're not going to have any enemies to the right. We're going to criticize people on the left and the left only. And Matt Walsh has doubled down on this. And said, we cannot complain about anybody to the right of us. If anybody feels stronger than MAGA or Trump or the conservative movement, they're to our right. They're to our, they feel even more strongly than the normie Republican voter. We're not going to complain about them. We're just going to ignore it because we need everybody on our side. And Nick Fuentes is who he's talking about. He is referencing Nick Fuentes. People have literally said, Matt, what about Nick Fuentes? You just heard what he had to say. Do you really think we should not criticize him? Do you think we should have no enemies to our right when they go this far? And recently, Tucker Carlson, who is to the right of Matt Walsh now, Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show. Tucker Carlson, if you're not aware, he has the most popular political podcast on the planet right now. His numbers are way higher than mine. Shocking, I know, but they are. And Tucker invited Nick Fuentes onto his show. Now, let me just first back up and say, Tucker Carlson is not a fringe character. He was at the Republican National Convention on stage giving a speech in prime time. That's a big deal. That's mainstream. Tucker Carlson was giving a speech at Charlie Kirk's funeral. That's the biggest Republican political event of the last year, easily, on stage, talking about Charlie Kirk. Tucker Carlson is not fringe. And he had Nick Fuentes on, and I am okay, actually, with Tucker Carlson having Nick Fuentes on his show. But you've got to ask him some hard questions. And we know that Tucker Carlson can ask hard questions. Do you remember when he had Ted Cruz on, not that many months ago, to talk about whether or not the United States should bomb Iran on behalf of Israel?
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
What percent?
predominantly Shia. Okay,
It's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
we are supporting
This is high
Israel.
stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
Tucker wanted to know if Ted knew how many people lived in Tehran. And you couldn't have an opinion on this unless you knew the exact figure of the population of Tehran. Tucker can ask hard questions. But for Nick Fuentes, it was cupcake after softball after cupcake. Just the nicest time. No hard questions at all. For example, listen to what Tucker has to say when Nick Fuentes says he's a fan of Joseph Stalin.
So it was like late December. It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's.
Mm-hmm. Always an admirer. But we don't need to go into that.
Well, that's, okay, let's get back. We'll circle back to that.
It was weird because the reason I mentioned that, it was almost like...
Now, if there is anybody in world history who might be more evil than Adolf Hitler, it's Joseph Stalin. You can make a really, really good argument that Stalin is worse than Hitler in every way you can imagine. And on top of that, Joseph Stalin's a communist. Republicans are supposed to hate socialism and communism, right? This is a perfect illustration of the horseshoe theory, where people's ideas bend around on the extreme so far that the right and the left aren't that far from one another. So Tucker has Nick Fuentes on, and he treats him with velvet gloves, so nice, they have such a friendly conversation, and everybody freaks out about this. What are you doing platforming this guy and not holding his feet to the fire, even when he says he loves Joseph Stalin? And there is a right-wing think tank. It's called the Heritage Foundation. It's one of the most important think tanks on the Republican side. A think tank is where people send their money, large donors send their money, and people come up with policies. They say, hey, this will really help our side. If we do this, this will promote our values. They'll write policy, they'll write position papers, they'll write papers in favor of this thing or that thing that Trump or any other Republican politician wants to do. They'll tell you why this is a good idea. And Tucker Carlson is intimately connected with the Heritage Foundation. The president of the Heritage Foundation has said that Tucker Carlson is one of his best friends. And people went nuts at the Heritage Foundation over this interview with Nick Fuentes. And they called the president into account and said, are we going to condemn Tucker Carlson for this? And the president of the Heritage Foundation, he said, no, this is fine. This is fine. It's great. You know, we can't cancel anybody. It's not appropriate to cancel people. And we're certainly not going to cancel Nick Fuentes, and we're certainly not going to cancel Tucker Carlson. That would be wrong. That would be truly evil to cancel somebody with any sort of views that might agree with ours. And this did not go well. And so he had a staff revolt, and people said, what are you doing giving this statement? And he said, I didn't write the statement. I didn't know what the statement was. I just read it. I fired the guy who wrote that statement. But again, he wouldn't retract anything. He just doubled down. Said, no, we're sticking with Tucker. Tucker's our guy. He's super important to the Republican cause. We're not going to condemn this. And this did not go over well either. And people leaked the meeting, the staff meeting where this conversation went on. One of the people at the Heritage Foundation said, what are you still doing here? Like, how you have no credibility left at all. You should resign immediately. This was a staff member who said something along those lines. And just today, Robert George, he is a distinguished professor at Princeton University. He is easily, there's no hyperbole here. This is not me talking him up. He is easily the most important conservative mind in American academia today. He's an extremely important academic, and he is a conservative. He has his own college at Princeton University that he runs. It's its own school. It promotes conservative values. It's operating within Princeton University. And he gets to set the agenda for this college because it's being funded by other people other than Princeton. And he just resigned from the Heritage Foundation. And he said what the president of the Heritage Foundation said he said it not for himself, but as a statement representing the Heritage Foundation itself. And that statement means it represents the board of directors of the Heritage Foundation. And it should not represent the board of directors of the Heritage Foundation or the foundation itself. And he did his best to get this guy fired or to offer a retraction, and it wasn't happening. So Robert George has left the Heritage Foundation, which is a very big deal. And there's all kinds of people. The Federalist Society, which is it's a society of conservative-minded lawyers and judges. They have their own event, and basically they just went after the Heritage Foundation for this. They went after Tucker for this. They went after Nick Fuentes. They went after Heritage. There's all kinds of other conservative voices saying this isn't right. We have to condemn this sort of thing. We have to condemn anti-Semitism. We cannot align with literal Nazis. It won't work for us. We have to do it. And what I've noticed about this, people are talking about the Republican Civil War, that MAGA is breaking up, that this is the end. And what I think is at the bottom of this is that Donald Trump is a lame duck. This is the end of his power and influence on the Republican Party. I'm not saying it's the total end of it. It's the beginning of the end. Nick Fuentes was a fan of Donald Trump. He told people to vote for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump even had him come to Mar-a-Lago and have dinner with him, which is nuts. He has a Jewish son-in-law. His daughter converted to Judaism after getting married to this Jewish family. And Donald Trump doesn't want to condemn anybody who's loyal to him. If you're loyal to him, he's loyal to you. He likes anybody who likes him. And you cannot condemn anybody who likes Donald Trump. If you're with Donald Trump, you're with everybody else. We're all in this together. We all love Donald Trump, and that's the main thing. And suddenly, people are saying, hey, you know what? It doesn't really matter if Donald Trump likes this guy. We're going to cut bait, at least when it comes to Nick Fuentes. The band is breaking up. People recognize they don't need to give everything that Donald Trump demands of them anymore. They can say, no, there is a future after Donald Trump, and it can't include anti-Semites. And there's some who are saying, hey, it needs to. We need to keep this whole coalition together. We all need to stay together. And I've said this in the past, and I will continue to say it. The MAGA movement is not based on, it's not based on political principles. It's based on the personality of Donald Trump. And when Donald Trump leaves this planet, the MAGA movement goes with him. It will have its factions, it will have its representations, but the coalition that is made up people who support Donald Trump and defend him and rally people towards him, that goes away. And the conservative movement will potentially have the opportunity to retake power in the Republican Party. Conservatism is dead as far as the Republican Party right now. There is a right wing, and that is different than conservatism. And when Donald Trump walks away, there will be an opportunity for somebody else to take control. But wait, I'm not done. That's not the only issue. There's also all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff going on. A number of key MAGA Republicans, Donald Trump's true base, are bucking him and voting with Democrats to release the Epstein files, to have them made no longer confidential. And Trump has been fighting this. He's been pressuring Republicans to not let this happen. And finally, there were enough votes to make it happen. And Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace, they're all getting called onto the carpet by Trump and the other MAGA people for being traitors. Listen to what Donald Trump says about Marjorie Taylor Greene right here. And let me remind you, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a QAnon nut. She was disciplined by the House for her own anti-Semitism, for her own homophobia, for her own anti-Islamic rhetoric, for buying into conspiracy theories, and for saying that school shootings were false flag operations that didn't happen. She harassed a teenager who was a victim of a school shooting. She got up in front of during Biden's State of the Union address and was shouting him down while the president was speaking. She's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And she's all in on Trump. And Trump loves her. And this is what Donald Trump has to say about her now.
Who's that?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, he says.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't think her life is in danger. Frankly, I don't think anybody cares about her. Okay, what about you?
And why is he saying this about her? Because this is the way she is describing the economy under President Trump in his second term.
Here's my issue, Steve. We have all-time highs of homeless people on our streets. The drug crisis in America is at all-time highs. The mental health crisis in America is at all-time highs. My kids' generation, the 20-year-olds, they can't afford rent. They can't buy a house. They can't afford insurance. They can't afford bills, and they are losing hope for the future in America.
This woman is pivoting. She is pivoting hard. She is a household name because of her loyalty and her defense of Donald Trump. She's moving off of him. She doesn't see a future keeping herself tied to Donald Trump. There's more to come. This is only just the beginning. But I could be wrong. If you think I am, let me know. Let me know why. I had fun and I hope you did too. Bye-bye.
It's the wrong podcast.